How's it going there, film buffs? Welcome again to another episode of How I See It. I'm at Team Sound Studios. This is going to be another Red Band review. It will have spoilers. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the zombie flick, The Dead Don't Die. Now, I don't know much about this filmmaker. There might have been a movie or two that I've seen of his. His name is, I know I'm probably going to butcher this, Jim Jarmusch. He directed the movie, and he pretty much wrote the movie too. I went to see this movie because it looked interesting. It looked like it might have been a bit of Zombieland, a bit of Shaun of the Dead, a bit of a horror movie too, like maybe along the lines of Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead. But it ended up being its own thing, to be honest with you. It's kind of like the movie said, okay, we'll be a drama in a small town where a bunch of people are pretty much deadpan, but there's also going to be zombies. That's pretty much the best explanation I can give the movie. If it wasn't for the fact that there were zombies in it, it would probably just be like your typical small town drama. So the movie takes place in a small town, and it stars Bill Murray, Adam Driver, Selena Gomez, Tilda Swinton, Steve Buscemi too, Danny Glover. The cast is pretty packed with well-known people. And that was another reason to go see the movie, just because the performances. And right there, the first thing that I was kind of disappointed with was Bill Murray's performance. Because Bill Murray, I grew up on Bill Murray, okay? I grew up in the 80s, Ghostbusters, Stripes, Caddyshack. He's hilarious. He's one of the funniest actors from his generation, and he's still funny today. But in this movie, he was just kind of flatlining. What I mean by that is his lines aren't really delivered with a lot of humor. It's more that he's there to provide contrast to what's going on. But he's like the calm, cool, collected sheriff of the town. He has to try and figure out what's causing people to die. It's not a typical Bill Murray freaking out kind of movie. It's kind of Bill Murray just being subdued. And that kind of disappointed me because I love Bill Murray when he's hilarious, and I thought that he might be hilarious in this movie, or at least pretty funny, but most of the humor didn't come from him. Most of the humor came from a lot of the bits in the movie. What I mean by that is, okay, the zombies first come about. They're walking around and they're actually saying things too. The first two zombies that appear, they're obsessed with coffee. Iggy Pop is one of them, which was really cool to see. And they were like, coffee, coffee. And then there's other zombies that are walking around saying, smartphone, Siri, Wi-Fi. That's pretty much the socio-political message of the movie, is that if you're obsessed with things that you don't need in this world, then you're doomed. And there's this one character in the movie played by Tom Waits, and he is pretty much an outcast. He lives in the woods, he lives off the land, and he basically just lives a life of necessity. He doesn't own a house, he doesn't have any technology, he probably doesn't bathe. He's just living off the grid, pretty much. Even though people know where he is, but he's not part of modern society, I guess you could say. The movie is pretty much saying that people that are part of modern society are doomed. And the reason why the zombie apocalypse is happening is pretty out there, I'd have to say, because it could never happen. There's polar fracking, meaning looking for oil in Antarctica, the Arctic Circle, whatever. And doing that causes the Earth's axis to change. And that's why they're saying, like, it's 8 o'clock at night. Why is it still light out? They're like, I don't know. And because the Earth's rotation is on a different angle, I guess. And that causes all kinds of worldly catastrophic events, like the zombies, dead bodies reanimating. And it's kind of funny because it's really out there. But I guess you can look at the movie like, hey, it's not realistic. Unlike some zombie movies, they try to pass off as, well, this could actually happen, maybe. Even though in other movies it still wouldn't happen, but you could see how it could happen. You really can't see how polar fracking would change the Earth's axis and in turn reanimate dead bodies. But you go with it because that's what the movie's doing. The other thing about the movie that is kind of off-putting, I guess you could say, is there's character development that doesn't go anywhere. Tilda Swinton's character, the first time you see her, she's like a wannabe bride from Kill Bill. She's doing Tai Chi with a katana sword and whatever, and you're like, okay. And that pretty much tells you that she's going to be dealing with zombies with her katana sword, which is what ends up happening once the zombies come about. But also, when she walks and talks around, she talks very literally, like she calls everybody by their first and last name and their title, like Sheriff, blah, 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 blah. And hi, blah, 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 and their first and last name, and everyone's like, huh, she kind of talks odd, and she walks around like kind of a robot, or she walks in one direction, turns, walks another direction, turns, and acts and talks really weird. And you find out at the end of the movie that she's actually an alien. And from out of nowhere, the zombies are coming at them full force. And you see Tilda Swinton's character look up in the sky, and the UFO is hovering right above there. And she walks in the middle of the field, and the alien ship takes her, and it takes off. And you're like, okay, what the fuck? What was the point of that? And there were a couple other things that ended up being pointless, which were, okay, Selena Gomez, and she had two people traveling with her into the small town, and you add some scenes where you see them talking a lot, talking about what they're going to do, and once the zombies come about, they have to stay in their room, and blah, blah, blah. And then, all of a sudden, they get killed off. It's like, okay, what's the point of trying to develop them as characters if they're just going to be throwaways? Is it so that we would become attached to them? I don't know. There wasn't really anything attaching anyone to them. It was just kind of, okay, we spent about 5-10 minutes showing they came from here and they came to this town and they got a motel and then they got killed off. And then there was this other side storyline where there were some kids in like a juvenile detention center, and it shows them saying, we gotta avoid these zombies, you know, we're gonna fuck some shit up and blah, blah, blah. And then the last scene with them is the zombies come into the juvenile detention center and they run off. And we don't know whatever happens with them. So another pointless storyline right there. As far as we know, Tom Waits and those kids were the only survivors at the end of the movie. Because the zombies end up killing everyone else. I'll get into that in a minute, though. So the other thing about the movie is they're trying to do something along the lines of Deadpool where they're breaking the fourth wall. Because, okay, the movie opens up and you hear this country song called The Dead Don't Die, and it's playing over the credits. And then you see Adam Driver's character in the car, and he's like, hey, I just got this CD, Sturgill Simpson or whatever his name is, The Dead Don't Die, and he puts it in the CD player, and people are like, that's familiar, where have I heard it? And he's like, oh, that's the theme song. It's the theme song to the movie, okay. And that was kind of ridiculous, but that bit was saved by Bill Murray eventually saying in the car, okay, I can't take this anymore. And he basically does what the audience feels like they want to do. He takes the CD out of the CD player in the car, throws it out the window. I can't hear that anymore. So that was the one really funny thing that Bill Murray did in the movie. And the other thing was at the end of the movie, the two main people, Adam Driver and Bill Murray, are in the car, and they're surrounded by zombies. Bill Murray's daughter, played by Chloe Sevigny, I know I butchered her name too, she was in the car and she got out because she saw her reanimated grandma, and she went out to her, and then she got killed. And then there was this moment, okay, after they saw Tilda Swinton's character go up in the UFO and it flies off. All throughout the movie, Adam Driver's character was saying, you know, I have a feeling this is going to end badly. And finally, Bill Murray breaks down and says, you know what? Why do you keep saying that? And Adam Driver says, you really want to know? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, because I read the script. So because he read the script, that's how he knew everything was going to end badly. That's why he knew it was zombies. And when they came upon the first murder scene and there's this whole exchange where Bill Murray said, I didn't get a full script. And then he talks about the director, Jim Jarmusch, like everything I've done for Jim. And it just gets way too down the rabbit hole of breaking the fourth wall. I guess my biggest complaint about the movie is, what was the point of it all? Like, okay, I get the main point. The main point is disconnect yourself from modern society. You don't need cell phones. You don't need this. You basically just need what you need to survive. And continuing to absorb yourself in technology and everything else that you don't need around you will doom you as a society. But there's a lot of other things in the movie that are pointless. Like, what was the point of Tilda Swinton's character and her being an alien? What was the point of the kids in the juvenile detention center? What was the point of Selena Gomez showing up and her friends, and then she gets killed off? I don't really know why the filmmaker did things the way he did. I guess he was just trying to say, well, there's already zombie movies like Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, there's already Shaun of the Dead, there's already Zombieland, so I'm going to do something a little bit different. And, well, he certainly did. Whether that's a good thing or not, it's pretty subjective. To me, I was kind of like, it was kind of entertaining in parts, but then other parts, it was really dragging, and I thought the end would come to some sort of resolve for all the characters and the whole storyline, but it's basically just, okay, zombies rule the world now, and everyone's doomed. And that was pretty much the point of the movie. And the other thing about the movie was they liked to overuse certain bits of humor. There was this one part when they come upon the first murder. One character says, what do you think it was? A wild animal or several wild animals? And then another character shows up. And one of the funniest parts in the movie, Adam Driver's character, he works for the police department, but he shows up to the murder in a convertible smart car. So he pulls up, and there's Adam Driver, this, pretty tall dude, and he's in a smart car, and it looks kind of funny. And whether that was intentional or not, it just did. And then he shows up, and then the sheriff's daughter shows up, and they all say the same thing. Do you think it was a wild animal, or was it several wild animals? To the point where the joke is like, okay, guys, we get it. But encompassing everything that I'm trying to say, did I enjoy the movie? Somewhat. Was I glad that I saw it? Sure. I saw it on discount night. So I think if I paid somewhere in the vicinity of 12 to 15 bucks to see it, I would have been like, yeah, that wasn't really worth it. But it was worth the $5 or $6 I paid. But as a movie overall, would I recommend it? It depends. It depends if you're into dramas and you're also into zombies. If you're looking for another movie that's like Zombieland or like Shaun of the Dead or even just like straight up horror zombie movie, this is not it. It's a slow burn and it concentrates more on the characters and there happens to be zombies there. And you can tell that the movie was made for not a whole lot of money and it was kind of a limited release anyway, so there you go. The movie will probably do well enough because of the names and the notoriety attached to it. What score would I give it? I'm going to give it a C+, which means it's not terrible, but it's not very good. It's just there. I'm not going to own it when it comes out on disc. It was a decent, quirky movie, but that's how I see it. Stay tuned because after this one, another Red Band review. Take care, guys.
And let me try with pleasured hands to take you in the sound.